an elite club. The G7 needs to be more open and less exclusive in an increasingly interlinked world. The G7 summit at Carbis Bay sent out two very strong messages. The first was driven by the United States' new President Joseph Biden and his vow that America is back to take the lead on global challenges. The G7 commitment to donate 1 billion coronavirus vaccines to poorer countries and to invest $12 trillion in their combined pandemic recovery plan depends on US commitments for a large part. The special communique and open societies for the G7 outreach and the invitation to fellow democracies India, Australia, South Korea, and South Africa are also an extension of his stated commitment to convening a democracy summit this year. Even the slogan for the G7, Build Back Better, was a White House term to declare America's economy and jobs recovery plan. The second message was the consensus amongst the seven member countries on countering China. The final G7 communique holds no less than four direct references to China, each negative, including criticizing Beijing for its rights recording Xinjiang and democratic freedoms in Hong Kong, its non-market policies and practices, concerns over its actions in the China Seas, and a demand for a transparent investigation into the origins of the COVID-19 virus. Though the bonhomie among the G7 leaders was palpable, the differences and contradictions in the grouping remain a challenge. Even 2 decades ago, questions were raised about whether the grouping, earlier the G8, could calm its mantle as the world's richest countries when emerging economies, China and India, are not included. On economic issues, the EU is a more representative unit than the individual European G7 member countries. Finally, the premise of a group like the G7, that of an exclusive club of the haves or the best versus the rest, seems anachronistic in a world that is much more interlinked now than in 1975 when the grouping first came about. India, as special guest to the G7 or G8 since 2003, has also maintained its independent course, especially on political issues. It is significant that the G7 outreach communiques that included the guest countries did not make the same references to China as the main document, and MEA officials clarified that Chinese aggression was not raised at the outreaches, which focused on the pandemic, climate change, and democratic freedoms. India voiced the concerns about some clauses in the joint communique and open societies which condemned rising authoritarianism, net shutdowns, manipulation of information, and right violations, areas where the Modi government has often been criticized itself. Addressing the session on open societies, Mr. Modi said that India is a natural ally to the G7. In the present, the government will be expected to walk the talk on its commitments at the G7 outreach, especially in the areas of information clampdowns, given that India had the largest number of internet shutdowns in 2020. Numero uno, Djokovic is now in sight of a golden slam after winning on a difficult surface. Novak Djokovic has always maintained that ending his career with the most number of Grand Slam titles is one of his prime motivations to keep playing tennis. In the Ronald Garros final on Sunday, he took a giant stride in realizing this dream with a sensational come from behind 5 set victory over the fast rising Greek Stefanos Tsitsipas for his 19th major, pulling him within one title of his celebrated rivals Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal. It was the Serb's second French Open trophy, making him only the third man in history, after Roy Emerson and Rod Laver, and first in the Open era post 1977, to win all four slams at least twice. The rhythmic allure of the record aside, the sense of completeness and the feeling of sporting immortality it brings, even to a career as storied as Djokovic's, is unparalleled. So, will the 34-year-old semi-final victory over 13-time champion Nadal, the greatest of all clay courters, that Djokovic had the tennis to challenge the Spaniard was never in doubt. What was astonishing was the way he bounced back from the shell shocking in last year's final and outwitted and informed Nadal for Djokovic to not fall off the emotional cliff and defeat Tsitsipas, a player 12 years younger, brought to light one of his constant themes: poise and resilience under relentless pressure. The triumph is yet another reminder that Djokovic is this era's most complete player, where Federer has tweaked his shot making with a larger racket head and Nadal has displayed new levels of aggression. Djokovic has prioritized balance, footwork, and timing. Currently, no one can perhaps hit as well as Djokovic from both wings with pace and spin at varied angles, even when on defense. As Nadal and Tsitsipas found out over exactly 4 hours and 11 minutes each, a tennis court had never felt smaller. This has now kindled hopes of a golden Grand Slam, a Herculean feat of winning all four majors and the Olympic gold in a single year. However, if there is one man who has dared to dream and succeed, it is Djokovic. Unseeded Barbara Krejcikova perhaps took cue and became the Chess Republic's first singles champion in Paris in 40 years, providing a storyline to latch on to after Naomi Osaka's public first singles champion in Osaka's withdrawal because of mental health concerns and Serena Williams' early exit. 9 months ago, Krejcikova was ranked outside the top 100 and had appeared in only three singles main draws at slams. But with two doubles and three mixed doubles trophies, she was no stranger to success. Over the last fortnight, with her delightfully languid but polished game, she became the first woman since Mary Pierce in 2000 to sweep both singles and doubles at Roland Garros.